My mother didn't even try to soften it. "Maybe if you were more like your sister," she said, glowing, while everyone clapped for Chloe's brand new attorney job. Their laughter rolled across the table, warm and easy, like I was the joke they'd all agreed on years ago. Dad nodded. Mark added some comment about real careers, and every pair of eyes slid past me as if I wasn't part of the family sitting right there. I held my smile, the kind you wear when you're bleeding on the inside. But while they celebrated Chloe's perfect path, the TV in the corner flipped to a breaking segment, the annual Forbes Billionaires List. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you listening from. And if you've ever worked so hard that silence became your answer, not to prove anything to anyone, but because the truth speaks louder than you ever could, I want to know you're here with me. I grew up in a house where success wasn't just expected, it was scripted. My parents, Richard and Linda, believed life had a single correct blueprint. College, respectable. Major, respectable. Job, respectable. Spouse. Chloe followed it like she was born holding the instruction manual. I didn't. And that alone made me an anomaly they didn't quite know what to do with. When we were kids, Chloe's report cards went on the fridge. Mine went into a drawer. Not because they were bad. I graduated early, took college courses in high school, won a regional coding competition at 16, but because none of it fit the picture my parents painted for the world. Code wasn't impressive. Law was impressive. Medicine was impressive. Anything involving a suit and a nameplate on an office door was impressive. So even now, sitting in that restaurant packed with relatives and friends clinking glasses for Chloe's shiny new attorney job, I shouldn't have been surprised when Mom said it again. The comparison. The sigh. The feeling that she was apologizing for having a daughter who didn't match the decor. The place smelled like rosemary bread and cheap celebratory champagne. Chloe sat in the center of the long table, face glowing under the warm pendant lights. She looked perfect, hair smoothed back, soft pink suit, posture straight like she'd practiced for a courtroom that hadn't even met her yet. Dad kept bragging to Mark's parents about her future cases she'd win someday. Promotions she'd earn someday, firms she'd change someday. They listened with wide eyes, nodding like they were witnessing the beginning of a legend. I sat 3 seats down, close enough to hear everything, but far enough to be forgotten when the conversation looped back around to real careers and proper paths. It was almost impressive how effortlessly they could exclude me without ever acknowledging they were doing it. Mark leaned over his wine glass and said something about how law required discipline and real commitment, giving me a quick, polite smile that carried the sting of condescension. He'd made comments like that for years. "Some jobs take grit," he once said when I visited home during my first year of building Lumos Play from my dorm room. Not just luck or apps. As if entire industries could be reduced to a 4-letter word. Mom reached over and squeezed Chloe's wrist the way she always did when she felt proud. "You always make us so happy," she said. "So steady. So reliable." Her eyes flicked briefly to me, softening just enough to hide the judgment underneath. "Some people are just born knowing what matters." I didn't react. You learn not to when it's been your entire life. You learn to fold your hurt into the corners of yourself, to breathe through the sting, to stay quiet so you don't look dramatic or defensive. Silence was the safest currency I had in this family. But inside there was always that familiar ache, the one that whispered that no matter what I built, no matter how far Lumos Play grew, it would never measure up to Chloe's law degree in their eyes. My studio in New York, the teams in Tokyo and Berlin, the tech we'd created that reshaped mobile gaming, they felt impossibly distant from the world my parents valued. Still, I came that night. I showed up, brought flowers, wished her well, because she was my sister. And some small part of me kept hoping that if I stayed long enough, tried hard enough, maybe they'd see me, really see me. I didn't know it then, but the moment that changed everything was already set in motion. The lights, the speeches, the TV in the corner quietly playing the evening news, all of it was about to collide. The night before Chloe's wedding felt like a dress rehearsal for everything my family had ever believed about me. You'd think a rehearsal dinner would be warm, sentimental, full of shared stories and inside jokes. Instead, it felt like stepping onto a stage where everyone already knew their part except me. I wasn't cast as a sister or a daughter. I was cast as a placeholder, a necessary seat filler who didn't quite belong in the picture. The ballroom was already decorated for the next day, soft gold lights draped along the walls, white roses arranged in tall glass vases, the faint scent of vanilla and eucalyptus floating through the air. Chloe and Mark moved through the room like royalty accepting tributes. Meanwhile, I found myself at the edges again, blending into the background, the way I'd unconsciously learned to over the years. When the coordinator handed out seating cards, that old ache in my chest tightened. Chloe and Mark's closest friends and family sat up front. My parents, grandparents, and Mark's extended family filled the side rows. My card, table 9. Near the busing station, close enough to hear kitchen doors swinging open, far enough to make it clear I wasn't central to the celebration. It was a familiar kind of exclusion, the kind that stings not because it's loud, but because it's quiet and intentional. Chloe barely looked at me as she passed by, hair perfectly curled, dress flowing behind her. "Don't forget to wear something elegant tomorrow," she said lightly, as if offering helpful advice rather than delivering another subtle dig. "The photographers will be everywhere." "Sure," I said. "I'll keep that in mind." She was already walking away before the words left my mouth. Mark joined her, muttering something about how tech people always struggled with formal events. He probably didn't think I could hear him. Or maybe he did. It didn't matter. It was the kind of joke he made, often soft enough for plausible deniability, sharp enough to land exactly where he wanted it to. I'd been dealing with comments like that since my early 20s. When I dropped out of a traditional grad program to pursue my startup full-time, Dad called it a phase. Mom suggested I join Chloe's study group to learn some real skills. Their attempts to redirect me weren't malicious, at least not in their minds. They simply didn't understand a world that didn't come with a degree certificate and a paycheck every 2 weeks. Even when Lumos Play launched our first game and hit 1 million daily active users, Mom's response had been, "That's nice, honey. So, when are you going to think about getting something stable? As if the work I poured myself into servers design, builds coding sprints, investor decks, sleepless nights was some fragile little hobby I could pack away when I got tired. I learned to stop explaining, to let their assumptions stand. It was easier to let them think I was drifting than try to translate a world they never bothered to understand. But success doesn't stay small. It grows. It raises its voice even if you don't. When our AI-driven engine caught the attention of major investors, when we expanded to multiple countries, when our valuations soared, I kept it quiet around them. Not out of pettiness, out of self-preservation. Every time I tried to open that door, they'd closed it so gently, it felt like my fault. So at the rehearsal dinner, when Dad raised a toast and praised Chloe for her dedication and real disciplined work, I didn't flinch. I'd heard it all before, so many times the words barely brushed my skin anymore. But the room felt different that night, heavier, almost theatrical. Like every condescending remark, every dismissive glance, every whispered laugh was setting the stage for something I couldn't yet see. The last blow came when Chloe stepped up to practice her speech. She looked straight at me. "And thank you to everyone who supported real ambition," she said, smiling like honey over ice. "It takes commitment to choose a serious career." A few guests chuckled. Mark smirked. Dad nodded approvingly. I just stood there, my hands clasped in front of me, nails biting into my skin. I didn't cry, didn't argue, didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me fold. But inside something shifted. A slow, steady burn began building in my chest. Not rage, not jealousy. Something quieter, more dangerous, clarity. Because while they stood there basking in the glow of Chloe's perfect path, they had no idea what was coming. No idea what the next day held. No idea that the entire narrative they'd built, the hierarchy they'd worshipped, was minutes from collapsing. They didn't know the world was already whispering my name. The wedding venue looked like a magazine spread, white hydrangeas, floating candles, soft music echoing through the open hall. Everyone kept saying it was picture perfect, and maybe it was. Just not for me. When I arrived, a coordinator glanced at my place card and guided me straight to table 9. Back corner, same as rehearsal. close enough to hear the clatter of trays and the hiss of the kitchen door, far enough that no one would mistake me for an important guest. My parents didn't notice. They were already busy greeting Mark's family like newfound royalty. Chloe stood beside them, shimmering in her gown, glowing in a way that made the whole room lean toward her. I sat quietly smoothing the front of my dress, reminding myself to breathe. This was her day. I came for her, not for approval, not for recognition, just to show up the way I always had. But the distance between us felt wider than the room. Dinner began, and the hum of polite conversation filled the space. From my corner, I watched Chloe and Mark float from table to table, collecting compliments like confetti. Every so often, someone at table 9 asked me how I knew the bride, and I had to smile and say I'm her sister, while they blinked in confusion, searching my face as if expecting a mistake. Then the lights dimmed and the microphone crackled. Chloe stepped forward for her first toast. She looked breathtaking, composed, confident, luminous. The kind of daughter parents brag about without running out of breath. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "This year has been incredible. New job, new chapter, new beginnings." She paused, soaking in the applause. "Mom and Dad always taught us to choose the right path, to build something stable, to work hard." Her eyes brushed past me just long enough to register. I'm grateful I listened. A ripple of amusement drifted across the room. Soft chuckles, knowing smiles, the kind that sting more because they pretend not to. Mark took the mic next. "Chloe is the most committed person I know," he said. "Real dedication, real work ethic." He smiled at the crowd, then at my parents. Not everyone chooses a serious career, but she did. People laughed openly this time. My mother dabbed her eyes. Dad nodded, pride written all over him like the moment validated years of parenting choices. Their daughter the attorney, their prize. Then Dad stepped up. "Chloe has always understood the value of effort," he said. "She's steady, focused. She knows what real success looks like." He didn't say my name, but he didn't have to. Every head instinctively turned toward table 9. A hot, familiar wave pressed against my chest. I sat perfectly still, hands folded, face neutral. Silence was the only armor I had. Somewhere between the speeches and dessert, my phone buzzed. I slid it under the table, Ava Chen. Ranking drops in 20. My pulse thudded once hard. Not panic, not excitement, just awareness. Around me, the celebration swelled. Guests toasted Chloe's career, her bright future, her real job. Every compliment sharpened the edges of the moment, carving me out of the picture even more clearly. And still, I said nothing. 5 minutes later, a couple at the next table pulled out their phone. The husband frowned at the screen, then tapped it. The wife gasped softly. Then more phones lit up. One table. Then another. A wave spreading in slow motion. The TV near the bar flickered. A banner slid across the screen. "Breaking news, annual Forbes Billionaires List released." Voices quieted. Chairs shifted. Someone whispered, "Wait." "Is that another?" Leaned closer to the TV. "No way. That's her. That's Kate Morgan." The air in the room changed. It tightened, sharpened, dropped into a hush, so complete it felt physical. Then my name appeared on the screen. Kate Morgan. Youngest self-made billionaire in gaming. Lumos Play valuation 8.5 B. Personal net worth 2.1 B. Forks froze midair. Laughter died. Breath caught in throats. 200 people stared at the screen. Then they slowly turned toward table 9. Toward me. For the first time in my life, the entire room finally saw me, and none of them knew what to do with it. The moment my name flashed across the TV, the entire ballroom transformed. It felt like someone had reached into the room and yanked the sound out of it. Music cut. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Even the servers froze trays suspended in their hands, eyes flicking toward the glowing screen. I stayed seated at table 9, my palms resting lightly on my dress, my heartbeat strangely steady. Not proud, not triumphant, just calm. A different kind of calm than I'd ever known around my family, the kind that comes when the truth finally steps into the light on its own. A guest near the bar whispered, "Is this real?" Another pointed at the screen. "That's her. That's Kate." Chloe's face drained of color. She blinked hard like the screen might correct itself if she focused long enough. Mark's jaw tightened. Mom pressed a hand to her chest. Dad stared as if the world had tilted under his feet. Then Ava appeared, weaving through the crowd with the assuredness of someone who had walked into breaking stories like this before. She reached my table, offered a small nod, and spoke loud enough for those closest to hear. "Kate," she said, "congratulations. The piece is live. It's already climbing." Her voice cut through the silence like a clean blade. I rose, not dramatically, not slowly, just naturally, the way you stand when someone calls your name and you're no longer hiding from it. Eyes followed me like magnets. I could feel the weight of 200 shocked breaths pressing toward me. Ava continued. "Lumos Play's valuation and your profile are front-page features. Media outlets are already covering it." Behind her, the TV scrolled through the details. AI-driven game systems, 85 million daily players, global offices. The valuation that surpassed industries my parents worshipped. My name plastered next to people they'd admired their whole lives. Dad finally moved. He stepped toward me, one hand gripping the back of a chair like he needed help staying upright. "Kate, this has to be a mistake," he said, voice thin. "It isn't," I replied. No anger, no edge, just truth. "But you make games." The way he said games, small, trivial, childish, carried years of dismissal in a single word. "I built a company," I said, "and the work I've been doing, this is what it has been." Mom's eyes glistened. "Why didn't you tell us?" I let out the softest breath. "I tried. For years." Chloe finally spoke, her voice cracking. "You're telling me that all this time while I was fighting for internships, studying all night, trying to make something of myself, you were just sitting there knowing you were." She gestured helplessly toward the TV. I wasn't sitting," I said. "I was working. You just didn't see it because you never asked." She stepped back like the words hit her physically. "This was my wedding day," she said. "My moment." I know I answered, and I didn't want this to happen today, but I didn't control the list. I didn't control the timing. Mark cut in. "You could have warned us." I looked at him. "When would I have had the chance?" "Before or after the jokes about real jobs?" His face hardened. He looked away first. Around us, guests whispered, not the mocking whispers from earlier, but the kind that tasted like awe and regret. A few people tried to smile at me, as if patching over the last hour with sudden friendliness. One woman clutched her daughter's hand, murmuring about internships. A cousin who hadn't spoken to me since high school mouthed congratulations like we'd been close all along. I felt none of it. Ava leaned in. "Reporters want a statement, and CNBC wants you tomorrow morning." "I'll be ready," I said. Dad ran a hand down his face. "Kate, I don't understand how we missed this." I met his eyes. "Because you didn't look." That was when Chloe's composure finally cracked. She stepped down from the head table, her dress sweeping the floor, and stood directly in front of me. "You let me think you were failing," she whispered. "All these years. You let me carry everything alone. I didn't let you think anything." I replied, "You just believed what made sense to you." Her lip trembled. "I didn't know." "No," I said quietly. "You didn't want to." She inhaled sharply, pain flickering across her features. Not anger anymore, something more complicated. Shame, maybe. Fear, loss, the beginning of an understanding she didn't want to face. Then Mom approached. "Kate," she said softly, "please, talk to us. We didn't know. We thought—" Her voice broke. "We thought you needed guidance." Guidance. The word left me before I could soften it. All I ever needed was respect. Silence stretched between us. I could feel the whole room holding its breath, watching the family who had spent their lives preaching about success realize they'd overlooked their own daughter's empire. A waiter passed by with a tray, hesitated as if unsure whether to serve champagne to a room in mourning or celebration. The band quietly lowered their instruments. Even the children in the back stopped moving, sensing the tension in the air. Finally, I straightened my shoulders. "I'm leaving," I said. "This moment isn't mine. It's still Chloe's day, and I won't take it." Chloe flinched, not because she wanted me to stay, but because she knew what my absence meant now. There was no more hierarchy to hide behind, no more comparisons that worked in her favor. I turned toward the exit. My steps felt steady grounded, like I was finally walking in my own story instead of theirs. Ava followed me out, holding the door as 200 stunned guests watched in silence. And just before it closed, I heard someone whisper the words I'd waited my entire life to hear. We were wrong about her. The morning after the wedding felt unreal quiet, in a way my life rarely was. My phone buzzed, nonstop messages from cousins I hadn't heard from in years, classmates wanting to reconnect distant relatives, suddenly proud to share my last name. I didn't answer any of them. What stayed with me was the voicemail from Mom. Her voice was small, almost trembling. "Kate, we saw everything. Your father and I, there's no excuse. We want to talk. Please." That afternoon, I sat under the studio lights at CNBC answering questions about Lumos play, about leadership, about building something from nothing. When the anchor asked about family, I chose honesty, without bitterness. Sometimes the people closest to you don't see you until the world does, I said. But success doesn't erase the hurt. It just teaches you what you'll accept moving forward. After the segment aired, Mom called again. "We want to understand you this time," she said. "For real." I looked out at the skyline from my penthouse, the life I built without their applause, and finally said, "I'll come tonight." But things only move forward if respect does too. For the first time in years, she agreed without hesitation. That evening, I walked into my parents' home with a steadiness I didn't recognize in myself. Not anger, not triumph, just clarity. We talked for hours about the years they dismissed my work, the walls we built, the space I needed to breathe. They apologized without deflecting, and for the first time, I let myself believe they meant it. Maybe we wouldn't fix everything overnight, but the foundation finally felt real. And if you've ever fought to be seen, truly seen, you're not alone. Tell me your story in the comments and hit subscribe so you never miss the next one.